Right.
Right.
What are we doing?
We're talking
Who's doing
about
the
infinite
intro?
amounts of monkeys.
No, we're not.
Who's doing the intro?
Um,
So I do, because
Go on then.
because you're going to do
You
most
do.
of the talking, and I'm going to go. Clap.
You're not a infinite monkey.
You're not that clever, mate. Couldn't even clap when I asked you to.
So you couldn't write Shakespeare.
Hello and welcome to Anarchy in the Ukulele.
Why are you letting him do the intro?
I'm so good,
Right. Hold on, right.
Yeah, let's-
Before we
yeah.
start,
3 seconds
I
in.
don't want any shouting out in this one.
Finish my Christmas shopping.
Unless it's something really funny, and then you're allowed, okay?
That was funny.
That wasn't.
Paul, are you whispering about me?
No.
You did, because you know I'll win.
Yeah. Right, let's go.
Hello and welcome to Anarchy in the Ukulele with me, Paul and KD. What are we doing today, KD?
Well, you wanted to know how to record a ukulele.
I do, because you are a studio engineer and a record producer, amongst other things. And it's
What other
you
things?
do. You're a male model, hand model, foot model, and
So you would have won your fiver.
yeah, clearly.
You can't keep quiet.
I'll do it. And yeah, it does interest me genuinely how to properly do it. And you're going to talk us through how to do it with microphones, aren't you?
Yeah.
So
You
take
get
it
a
away.
microphone,
Yeah.
you pop it in front,
Yeah.
you play. No. Okay, so we're going to do it a few ways, or a couple of ways at least. We're going to do a 1 microphone technique, a 2 microphone technique.
Okay.
There's all sorts of techniques within that
Yeah.
that you can use. I'm going to go through a couple of them, but I'm just going to focus on how I would do it.
Okay. Fine.
Because there's, an infinite amount conversation we've
There's
just
not
had.
an infinite amount.
There's an infinite amount of microphone techniques that we could use.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so 1 mic technique. Let's
Okay.
get a microphone.
Fantastic. And what microphone are you using?
So, we're going to recommend for this, because like I say, I'm going to do it as if I was recording. And you want a condenser microphone.
Okay, just explain what that is.
So this microphone here this is a Lewitt, I think it's a 440.
Right.
That's irrelevant. It's whether it's a condenser microphone or not. This is what's called a large diaphragm condenser microphone. What was your question?
What actually is a condenser microphone?
So a condenser microphone, it basically is a microphone that has a current running through it.
Okay.
And it's all to do with what's called the polar pattern of the microphone. I don't want to get too technical because I think we just want to show people how to record it. But microphones have different sort of angles that they can record from.
Yeah.
So we have a dynamic microphone.
So they're the main two types of mics, are they? Dynamic and condenser.
They are the main 2 types. I'll come back in shot before I talk. They are the main 2 types. You can have ribbon mics and valve mics and all sorts of things.
Okay.
The main 2 that you'd use for recording this, you might use a ribbon. A ribbon's very similar to a condenser, but we're not going to go into those fine details. A dynamic, which is mainly what you'd sing into. You also use dynamics for miking up guitar cabs and things like that. You can use them on a ukulele if that's all you've got. I'm not saying don't use it. You can use it, and you can use similar techniques. The thing with a dynamic microphone is it picks up sound very close to the capsule.
Right.
So the capsule's in the little grill there, and it's going to pick up sound very close, and it's very directional on a dynamic mic. So it's pretty much only picking up there. So when you see singers and they're singing with a microphone down here, it's not going to pick up.
Okay.
Only going to pick up when it's right in front of their mouth.
Okay.
That's exactly the same as if you were recording an instrument. So if you're recording a ukulele, the first thing you're doing any recording, you have to work out where the sound's coming from.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the sound hole that you want to mic up.
Okay.
That's where the sound's coming out, but where does it sound nicest? It's the whole instrument. In the case of an acoustic instrument, whether that's a guitar, ukulele, could be a trumpet.
Yeah.
You stick a microphone down the bell end of a trumpet. It's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's what it's called. If you put it down the bell of a trumpet.
Right now, I just don't find it very funny. Potty mouth.
She's so rude, yeah. £5 every time you talk.
Who gets £5 every time?
Paul.
I talk?
Me.
La 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 la
Yeah.
la la la.
From Abby's wages.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, if you put an instrument down the bell of a trumpet, for instance, it will sound very raspy. I mean, it'll sound pretty awful.
Right.
The nice sound coming from the trumpet is a bit of a distance away.
Okay.
So you might still want that kind of focus sound where it's coming from, but you want it further away. Same with the ukulele. If you put a microphone right into the sound hole,
Yeah.
it's going to be very boomy, very boxy sounding because it's a box.
Okay.
It's what it's made out of. That's what you're going to record. If I'm sat here listening to you play,
Yeah.
I can kind of hear that there's a nice kind of arc of sound,
Okay.
and that's where we want to mic up from. We want to kind of bring it around where we're listening to it, where it sounds nicest. There's a couple of ways of doing it, which we'll go through. So, dynamic microphone, very directional, have to have it very close. It's not ideal for acoustic instruments. Condenser microphone, which we're going to use today, cardioid is the sound pattern, the polar pattern. And what that means is there's kind of like an apple shape, and it comes out from the microphone, and it kind of curves around like that. And it's an apple shape because it dips in behind the back there like that. So it curves around and dips in. That means it's picking up sound from all around this kind of curve.
Okay.
What that does mean is you've got a little bit of leeway in where you're miking up. Now that's with a large condenser microphone. You can get pencil condenser microphones, which we're going to use in a little bit. Still have the same curve, but they're a little bit more directional in where they're going. So you point them at certain places. This, I would always recommend a large diaphragm condenser for one mic recording.
And something that's always confused me, and sorry if this is slightly off, but
Is this about recording and ukuleles, or is this something completely
no,
different?
yeah, no. Can one mic record in stereo?
It's a little bit off. Yes, you can get stereo microphones nowadays.
But that's a mono, is it?
That's a mono. Basically, a stereo microphone would have two capsules on it,
Right.
and it would then record. The capsules would be pointing in slightly different directions.
Yeah.
And so the arc would kind of cross over, and you'd have two arcs
Yeah.
on there, and that's how they get a stereo recording.
Right.
I generally don't really like those.
Right.
Just use two microphones.
Because from a basic point of view, if you said to me, I'm going to record with one mic and it's going to be mono, I'd be like, well, surely that's not going to sound great.
It depends what you're using that recording for.
Right.
Stereo recordings in solo recordings are nicer. If you're recording in a band situation, you want everybody monoed and you want to pan, which basically means you have your mix, and your mix is in stereo. So your mix uses up a stereo field like that.
Right.
And if that was a ukulele and you're sat over there, you want to pan it over there.
Right.
And you might want to pan another ukulele over there, and you might want to pan a percussionist kind of that way. And so it means you can move it around that stereo field.
Yeah.
If something's in mono, everything is dead in the centre. So you can use a mono recording and then put it into a stereo
Okay.
field and move that mono recording around.
Okay.
You can do that, I mean, without getting too tied up in detail. You can do it with stereo recordings as well, but a stereo recording has width to it.
Right.
So a full stereo recording of a ukulele that we're going to do in a bit
Yeah.
will be panned far left and far right, so it will use that whole stereo field. But you can drag the right hand side
Yeah.
over towards the left to narrow that stereo field. You can drag them both together to make it mono.
So, but you'd have to do that in the mix down.
You do that in the mix down.
Okay. So effectively, if you're just recording with this, it's
Yeah.
going to be mono.
Yeah, and if I was recording, as we record a lot in here,
Yeah.
we don't put stereo mics if we're both playing and things like that because it would get too messy. So we'd both start off in this stereo field and then we'd kind of try and narrow it down. The way it works, which again we'll go through, is you'd have one microphone kind of up here and you'd be getting the sound from here, one down here and you're getting the sound down here. Two of us doing that and then trying to get it into one recording would end up a little bit wishy-washy and a bit messy.
Right.
So in that sense, you'd be better having a mono recording where you could be over there and I could be over here.
Yeah.
So at the minute, think of it as we're sat in stereo.
Oh, okay.
So you're panned all the way over there, I'm panned over here.
Yeah.
If we're in mono, you'd be on my lap.
Okay.
What a great analogy.
Yeah.
So condenser microphones are what we want to use.
Okay.
Ultimately, that's kind of all you need to know. By all means, get into the technical stuff, but just use the right microphone for what you're trying to use. The big condensers can be anything from ones like this, which is a studio microphone. You can get ones that just plug into your computer.
Yeah.
You can get USB condenser microphones. There's a company called Blue.
Yeah,
They do
they're
a
very
microphone
popular,
called a
aren't they?
Blue Yeti,
Yeah,
and
Yeti, yeah.
things like that. They're great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those. You could perfectly use one of those to record ukulele. One thing to always think about is, what is this recording for?
Yeah.
Because if the recording is to go with video, and mostly people are going to watch that video on a TV, for instance.
Yeah.
Yes, TVs are in stereo, but it's kind of like a pseudo stereo, because you're sat here and the TV speakers are very close together.
Yeah.
To listen to something in stereo properly, your speakers have to be spaced far
Right.
apart. Which is why when you get these little boxes and things like that, or on your phone and it says it's got stereo
Yeah,
speakers.
it's pointless.
Yeah, because the two speakers are right next to each other.
Yeah.
The technology now tries to fire that sound out so it widens it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not. You're not really hearing it in true stereo. It's a bit of a trick. On
So
the ears.
so going back, so we don't want it close to the sound hole.
We don't want it close to the sound hole.
Sort of what distance would you put it?
Well, so there would be a set distance that I would just kind of know, and if I was using one microphone, I'd kind of go into about there.
Yeah.
So what's that? About
Foot and a half.
18 inches.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd go to there. I'd point this at the fingerboard. So if that was your playing position, I'd want to point that coming straight across at around about the 12th fret,
Oh, okay.
and that's what I'd aim at. And I would keep it. I wouldn't point it at the 12th fret from over here.
Yeah.
You're just going to be getting too much fingerboard there.
front of it.
I wouldn't point it from over here, because you're just going to get a lot of boomy bass end. I'd kind of go just a little bit off centre,
Yeah.
pointing there, so you're coming across to the 12th fret, but you're also basically you're getting this arc is hitting your fingerboard up here. It's coming round and it's getting a little bit of bass end, so you're getting bits of everything there.
Okay.
That's with one microphone. The way to find that spot is to use headphones.
Okay.
So what you would do is you plug this in. There's a whole other side to this, which is, what are you recording on? So for today, we're going to ignore that a little bit
Yeah,
and just go
just the
on the
mics.
microphone. But we might do recording systems and things like that later on. What you would do is you would plug your headphones into your recording system, whatever that might be. That might be one of those little Zoom
Yeah.
handheld things that you can still plug extra microphones in. If it was a Zoom handheld, you could use that as well. You could position that in the same place as your microphone. A lot of them will say they've got stereo mics on, and they have.
Yeah.
So we can go into that a little bit as well. Plug your headphones in, get the person to play, and then actually move your microphone around, listening on your headphones.
Okay.
That is always, whatever you mic up, whatever it is, whether it's drums or anything else, what you want to get is the sound going into the microphone as near to what you're hearing in your ears as possible.
Right.
That you're happy with. So if you were playing, literally, just play something, anything could do. So, even without headphones, just moving my ears around there,
Yeah.
you can kind of tell straight off that that is around about the position that I want.
Okay.
I say up there,
15.
unbelievable, unbelievable. So you can hear from there that you're still going to get sort of fingerboard noise. With an acoustic instrument like this, you want to minimise the amount of scraping and string noise that you get.
Yeah.
So it's getting that balance between, like I say, if that was more that way, I'm going to get way too much of that. If it's more this way, it's going to get boxy and boomy.
Yeah.
So around about there is the perfect position. Aim it at that 12th fret.
Yeah.
Coming across it, so slightly, if you're playing slightly to the left. The
Right.
thing with these things, it's always a bit harder if you're having to mic yourself up.
Yeah.
Because you can't play and go and listen at the same time.
Yeah.
That's where the headphones can really come in.
Yeah. I'd never actually thought of that, because I use one of these Zooms with the XY, two little
Yeah, yeah.
stereo ones, and yeah, in all honesty, I'd never thought of plugging headphones in to even listen to it. So
Yeah.
I've learned something.
Plug your headphones in, and then you can get that kind of perfect position.
Okay.
Again, if I move this too close, it's going to get a bit boxy and it's not going to sound very natural.
Yeah.
If I move it further away, I'm going to get more of the room sound in it.
Okay.
Now,
You mean Abby?
Abby, more of Abby in it. If that's what you want, then that's absolutely fine. If you're recording in a church, I just realised she just coughed
Sorry.
through our video.
Yep.
Why do we allow her to sit in here? If you're in a church or a cathedral or somewhere where you want that big sound, you might want to just move that a foot or so back. So the further away, the more room sound you're going to get.
Yeah.
So if you want that natural reverb of the room, again, the closer you get, the less room sound. So it's always that balance between, does your room sound nice?
Yeah.
If your room's small, it's going to sound boxy.
Right.
So you don't want to move the microphone too far away because you're going to get the boxy sound of the room as opposed to the boxy sound of the ukulele.
Yeah.
It really is a balancing act between where you are, where you're recording. If your room's reflective and you like that reflection, if it's nice to play in and you think it sounds nice, maybe try just a little bit further away.
Yeah.
If when you listen back to that you can hear that room too much, bring it in a little bit closer.
Okay.
You really, there's no sort of one rule.
Yeah.
You know, it's dependent on so many things, dependent on the instrument, the way that you play the instrument, the microphone that you're using, and the room that you're in.
And have you found specifically with ukuleles, because they're pretty quiet, pretty thin on sound, have you found that you have to operate differently when you're doing this?
A little bit. I think the thing with quieter instruments, I mean, I find this when I'm playing.
Thank you.
The thing with quieter instruments, I find this when I'm playing, is that because the instrument's quieter, you're going to pick up a lot more sounds in the room.
Yeah.
Quite handy when Abby's had a coughing fit. So, like, you get a lot of breathing.
I remember when we did my album, you kept saying, I can hear you breathe, Paul.
Yeah.
And I was...
And I'm the
Yeah.
same. It turns out I'm a very heavy breather.
Aren't you just?
Yeah.
Especially when
Oh,
you
yeah.
ring me up late at
It's
night.
very weird, isn't it? And so you're going to get more of those sounds, which also means you're going to exaggerate fingerboard noises and string noises and things like that. I think after a while you just kind of learn to live with that. When you first
Yeah.
start recording, you listen to every fine detail. And I think it was Sting used to, when he went into a recording studio, he would make them retake and retake and retake until there was no string noises
You
on
see,
the acoustic guitars. And
I mean, if you listen to early Smith singles, you can hear the finger movement on
Yeah.
Andy Rourke's bass. And if you listen to Segovia or Bream on classical guitar, you can hear the finger movements.
Yeah.
And I actually like that.
yeah, it makes it natural.
Makes
if
it
you
feel
take
real.
all of that, it's like when a singer sings, there's this whole thing in pop music that you get rid of the breathing.
Yeah, I
But
like
then
the
it sounds very robotic, particularly
Yeah.
like an upbeat to something, if you don't get a little breath in there. But again, it's always a balance between that overpowering what you're doing and
Yeah.
becoming distracting to actually capturing what you want. And I think the initial response is to think everything's so noisy all the time, particularly the ukulele because it's a bit quieter. What people do to kind of counteract that is they move the microphone in probably a little bit too close.
Yeah.
So I would say, get that balance right, around about 18 inches away. You're then going to be picking up enough instrument. Yes, you'll get breathing and things like that. You'll get creaky seats and things like that.
Yeah.
They're all things, when you're recording, it's all things to think about. What are you sitting on?
Yeah.
If your seat does creak, can you change it for something else? I know
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds stupid, but the amount of recordings that I've done where we don't, or the person hasn't done that, and you regret it later on because you may not have noticed it. And
I
then
think
all of a sudden you're...
strings make a difference as well, because really nylon strings, you don't get finger squeak, but on these ones, you get
Yeah.
that little movement sound, don't you, on the,
Yeah,
on
I
the
mean, yeah, you
metal
can hear
wound
it, right?
ones.
But there's nothing wrong with that sound
No,
if
I
it's
like
within
it.
balance of the instrument.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is for our one microphone technique. So do
Okay.
you want to give us a little burst of something with that? Beautiful. So that we put, there's no effects on that at all.
Okay.
That's kind of exactly as it sounds going into the microphone.
Be interesting to see if we can hear the fingers moving.
You'll
Actually.
hear it a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll hear it a little bit, but I think that's the balance of what you're picking up there. Like I say, it's quite quiet. Some of that stuff, the lead line that you were playing there,
Yeah.
very quiet.
Yeah.
Now there are things we can do about that. We can use things called compression and things like that. But again, maybe that's another video. We're just going to go into how you mic up for this one, I think. So that's our one microphone technique.
So that's your easiest one, really.
Easiest one. So, and if you've only got one microphone, it could be a USB one. Use that, plug it in. Next microphone technique.
How much is the old the Yeti? It's not that much, is it?
No, it's not ridiculous. Sort of 130, something like that.
So this is the thin one that you were talking about.
This is the pencil microphones.
That's very 80s, isn't it? Very Rick Astley. He'd use one of them to sing into, wouldn't he? No, ABC. They were the ones who used the really thin ones.
Right. So different techniques we can do with this.
Okay. So these two mics are exactly the same. There's not like a left and a right.
No, these two mics are exactly the same. As you buy more expensive ones, you get things called match pairs,
right?
Where in the factory they've matched the left to the right one so that they're perfectly in tune with each other. Load of old nonsense. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yep.
Should eradicate phase issues and things like that, but
okay.
You know, we're not at that level. So if you get your playing position for me.
Doing the same, yeah.
So what I'm going to do here is, with this microphone, what having two allows you to do, one, it gives you stereo.
Yep.
But it's not a very big instrument, so it's not like a stereo piano where you've got all the high notes down one end and all the low notes down the other.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't get that stereo spread.
Yeah.
You just get this kind of slightly fuller sound. What this allows us to do is get a little bit more bass end.
Okay.
So we've got this microphone here, which we can position still around about, don't know, 1.5 ish.
Yep, from the sound hole.
Around about there. And what we're going to do is we're going to point this one just above the sound hole. So just kind of down here somewhere.
They could almost do with a laser on them. There's an invention.
You can get them with lasers on them, but it really annoys me.
Don't take my invention away from me, Kev. You can't get them.
You can get them. It's called an Aston Starlight.
Is it really?
And they're really nice microphones, but they have a laser on them.
That annoys you.
I don't feel that any recording engineer worth their salt would actually...
would need a laser.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you really want one, just get a laser pen and hold it on the top.
Hold on.
But,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure you can eyeball it.
Okay.
So we're going for that one just above the sound hole there.
Yeah.
This one we're going to catch a bit more treble with. So we're going to come in, and again we're aiming at around about that 12th fret.
Okay, and that's more trebly up there, yeah?
So that's not that different a position from the large condenser.
So just to ask a question at this point, this is a low G, so it's more bassy than a high G uke. So with a high G uke, would you potentially aim that more to the sound hole because you wouldn't need the extra treble?
No, because I think, you know, when you're talking more bassy in ukulele terms, that's like...
Right, okay, yeah.
That's like saying, you know...
Yeah, we need a good analogy, don't we?
Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I was trying to think of one as well, but yeah, okay, yeah.
Like an ant is more bassy than a flea.
Right. We'll come up with a better one.
Yeah, I don't know. But, it's not... You're not really adding much bass end into it, so it's frequency wise you're still going to be, you know, way above anything that's a really deep frequency.
Yeah.
So what this is doing, it's giving us a stereo spread, it's giving us a little bit more control over that finger noise at the top there.
Yeah.
We'll bring that one out a little bit. And it's giving us a little bit more control over the bass end. So what you want to do in any recording is use the least amount of EQ.
Yeah.
And effects as you can use. If you want a natural solo ukulele recording, so this isn't something that's going to be loads of effects all over it to create a certain sound, then you want to be using the least amount of EQ as possible.
Yeah.
So what this allows us to do is, okay, we want a bit more bass end, we turn this one up. We want a bit more treble, we turn that one up. Again, it's a balance with finger noise and boxiness and everything else, always this balancing act.
Yeah.
But it allows us to use the two microphones to do that. It also widens the sound slightly because you've got this stereo effect. So you've got your treble ever so slightly more there and your bass there. So it's minimal on something like a ukulele, and it's also minimal on an acoustic guitar. I know lots of engineers that will only ever record acoustic guitars in mono.
Yeah.
I know others that will use mid-side microphones and all sorts of things, which is a whole different kettle of fish.
And what's this normal or dynamic switch on here?
That's completely irrelevant because they don't normally
forget
have
I
them.
asked that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go normal.
Just remind me what make
Remember,
these
we've
are.
changed this. So, right, these microphones are slate microphones, and these are actually called mic modelers.
Right.
So these aren't what your average person will necessarily use. They're just what we had to hand today.
Yeah.
But they are pencil condenser microphones,
Okay.
which means they still have this kind of curve to them, but it's slightly more narrow. But it's a bit more directional.
Yeah.
But it means that as a dynamic, that would want to be kind of right on your hand. As a condenser, it can be a little bit further away and catch a little bit more around the area. There's lots of different makes of these kind of microphones. You don't tend to get these from as USB microphones, so it's kind of a little bit of a step up from there. They tend to need an audio interface to plug into.
Right. Yeah.
Again, if you're using something like a Zoom handheld, they might have two of these. These will always, and the big one as well, will require what's called phantom power, which is powering the microphone.
Yeah.
You can get condensers with batteries in. They're hard to find nowadays unless you're buying a classic microphone.
Yeah.
Because you don't really want to be powering them off batteries when you can.
Presumably that's for field recordings or something.
Yeah,
Is it? I don't know,
but even nowadays, your field recorder will send phantom power to your microphones.
yeah.
But there's lots of makes of them. AKG. Who else is there? SE microphones do some really good price ones. Rode microphones
Yeah.
do really nice ones. They're good to have for making these kind of stereo recordings, particularly if you're doing something solo. That mono recording might just sound a bit too centered.
Yeah.
And just having that tiny bit of width could just open it up a little bit.
So if you were going to record a ukulele album, is this the setup you would use?
You may remember this setup from when we recorded your ukulele
Well, that's
album.
what I was going to ask next. Because that's going back quite a few years now, and I was completely new to it. And I remember you talking about a figure of 8. So
a figure of 8. I think we possibly used on the duets album when we had two of you. So a figure of 8 pattern, which is with the big microphone, is where you can record from both sides of the capsule.
Right. Okay.
It's not something that I use very much, if I'm honest.
Right.
I tend to use this kind of configuration.
Yeah.
I think for your album, what we did to hedge our bets is we did a stereo configuration and then we did a one mic technique as well.
Right.
So we actually had 3 mics on your ukulele.
Yeah.
So that we could basically choose after we'd recorded.
Oh, so you picked the best one rather than all 3.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. So we could choose afterwards what we wanted.
Yeah.
To use.
Yeah.
So this is our stereo one. I'm just going to check the gains. Yeah, I think we'll be okay on that.
I'll play the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much the difference there is between the two of them.
It depends. Again, it depends what you're listening to it on.
Yeah, so you're not going to put anything on there.
If you're listening to, we'll do one at the end where I've mixed it and
Yeah.
I've kind of put some nice effects on it. But I won't put them. I'll just put a bit of reverb on it.
Yeah.
Bit of reverb, compression, which just levels out the sound a little bit.
Okay.
But what you've just been hearing is exactly what's gone into the
what you're
microphones.
hearing, yeah.
That's one way of doing a stereo recording. The other way that you might have seen
Yeah.
is you mentioned your little Zoom recorder.
Yeah. So is that an XY it's got?
It's an XY. And then, so the idea of an XY, a very quick setup, is that you would have these at 90 degrees to each other.
Because when you look at my little Zoom thing, you can see the 2 mics in there, literally in X and Y.
So we would go, oops, that doesn't help, does it? We would go roughly, takes a little bit of matching up, we would go like this.
So what is this doing that the last one didn't do?
What do you think it's doing?
I'm trying to work that out. So this one's getting more bass, this one seems to be getting a lot more treble, so it seems more extreme. So you're getting a wider width?
You can get it to sound like it's a wider width. There's a couple of things with it. One is it's like if you're getting phase issues, and what
Right.
phase is, I mean, if you're a guitarist, you know the sound of a phaser.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's when you're using two audio sources, one is cancelling out the other one.
Right. Okay.
And the way to get rid of phase is by making sure that your microphones are exactly equal distance from your source. Now, when you've got one microphone down here and you've got one over there,
yeah.
that's really hard to achieve because the source is moving around. If you're moving around, it can get closer to that microphone and it can be closer to this microphone, and you can get a few little phase issues.
Yeah.
Generally, in the types of recording we're talking about, it's not really a problem. This does help to eliminate that. So effectively, rather than having this microphone pointing up here and this microphone down here, you're crossing them over so that this one's pointing down towards the sound hole and that's pointing up towards the
Right.
threats.
Okay.
I tend to not really like this method.
Just on a ukulele, or just in general?
Just in general, it's just not a method that plenty of people use it and use it to good effect. I like to have that bit more control over what I'm recording, and I feel like you can kind of record the best bit of this end of the instrument and the best bit of that end of the instrument slightly better by moving the microphones around. Again, using your headphones with each mic to actually go, right, this is the nicest sounding part, this is the nicest sounding part.
So is this one still recording in that apple shape round here?
It is, yeah, and if you think about it, it's ballooning out because you're coming out from there. But it's still very directional. But if you go to your playing position, the reason I don't like it is because it's quite hard to get the perfect position.
Yeah.
They should perhaps be angled up slightly from there.
I kind of feel they're partly duplicating each other.
Yeah,
as
well, it's not really duplicated, but I'm missing you there from there. But you want to have this kind of 90-degree angle on it. And so to me, you're just... It's a bit more complex to achieve the results that you're after.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would always go with... Let's move that one down there. Although, let's do a recording. Let's just show
I'll do the same thing.
where we're at.
Would you alter it if, because what I'm doing there is changing between lead and chord, so you're getting quite a big change between volume. If I was just doing chords, if I was just doing lead, would you change the position?
I wouldn't really change the position.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the context. If you're just doing chords and that's to go and play with drums and bass and things like that, personally, unless your setup was a trio, then I might still go with a stereo mic. But if it was more instruments, I'd go with a mono mic. I'd go with one mic.
Yeah.
Only because it's easier to put that in a mix later on.
Oh, okay.
I think the thing is with having it, like I say, a slight distance away, we've perhaps gone a little bit closer there as well, but having it a slight distance away is that it really can encompass whatever you're doing. If you're playing chords, it's fine. If you're playing melody, it's fine. If you're finding the melodies really too quiet on your recordings, then you do have to get them in a bit closer.
Yeah.
But you'll notice when we're recording stuff here, we actually have the microphones quite far away.
Yeah.
But we're in a recording studio with a very quiet environment. We can do that. There's no noise around us.
Yeah.
We've got a really nicely treated, acoustically treated room that we record in.
Yeah.
So we have a bit more luxury. If you don't have all of those things, you might have to bring them in a little bit to around about this sort of distance.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Cool.
That's good. Interesting stuff.
Well, that's the basics
Yeah.
of... it's like we've done a serious video.
I know.
I need to lie
We
down.
got quite heavy there, didn't we?
Yeah, I need to lie down. I don't like this. I mean,
It's like I was interviewing you.
yeah. I mean, Abby hasn't even come bounding in or anything. It's
There's time
beautiful.
yet. There's time yet.
They're the basics of recording. We might do a few sessions on this.
Yeah, I think
We'll
it's
do
interesting
sort
stuff.
of different ways of then actually using that into a system.
Yeah.
What kind of effects you might use, what EQ you might use.
Yeah, maybe even do something on sort of some of the mics that people are buying around the 150 quid end,
Yeah.
see what ones are best. That'd be quite good.
Yeah, I mean, any mic that you use, if you're recording and you're recording like on an iPhone or something like that, any mic that you can get is probably going to be better.
Yeah.
iPhone mics are great, but it's going to be a step up.
Yeah.
Purchasing wise, it's a bit like ukuleles. You know, you can get a microphone off Amazon now for 30 quid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't probably suggest it. If you can stretch to £100,
Yeah.
and you know it's something that's got good reviews, there's certain makes, as you know, Zoom, who make recorders, make good little microphones.
Rode do a nice little one. for
Rode
the
do
iPhone.
really nice ones. What else is there? Sennheiser,
Yeah.
good value mics. SE make really nice microphones from around about that £100 up to you
Yeah.
know, thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend thousands.
No. But
But-
why would you spend more on a mic than your uke?
Well,
You know,
depends what you're into, doesn't
unless
it?
you're an engineer.
Yeah. But yeah, so the main thing is that you just get the balance of what you're trying to do. You work out what is it for, where's it going to be used,
Yeah.
and then you make that decision. Can I do it with one mic? Do I need two microphones? Do I want stereo? The wider you place the mics apart, the bigger the stereo field.
Yeah.
But like I say, with a small instrument, it's a bit of a,
Yeah.
you know, there's diminishing returns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Cool. Serious video.
Well
we
done,
can
us.
do one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you like that, do let us know in the comments. Let us know what other kind of things you're interested in, and we will try and blag our way through those as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for that, Kev.
Cool. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell.